Hello, I'm Steve, and this is my Rock and Metal Life. And this is a very special edition of On This Date, which would be February 25th. 40 years ago today, I saw the Rock and Roll Machine Triumph, and it was my first time seeing the band. And they were way, way up on my list. They were behind probably only Van Halen at the time as my favorite band out there of everything I knew. Ozzy Osbourne was up there as well. The Cars were up there, but Triumph was one of the absolute elite bands to me, and they were touring for, as you can probably figure out, the Never Surrender record, which I think is just an absolute masterpiece. Um, I was in high school at the time. I played this thing over and over and over all the way through. Um, Triumph was a band for me that I got into them on the Just a Game record, but it was actually those were the first songs I heard was Hold On and Lay It on the Line, and so I was familiar with them. And then Allied Forces came out, which is if Never Surrender isn't their best record, I would say Allied Forces is. And they were, they seem like they're not really remembered for being as big of a juggernaut as they were. They were an arena act. They sold out, big arenas. They had a light show that was probably unrivaled at the time. One of the great live acts of all time. But yeah, they toured all around and they filled the big arena. Um, they were, legendary for having there might be a little bit of progressive. There was a lot of hard rock. There was very melodic stuff. You had the two voices, the power voice of drummer Gil Moore, and then you had the high, powerful high voice of Rick Emmett, who also played just a ridiculously good guitar and was a great showman in concert as well. So this was a really big event for me when they came, and I remember I was working a little part-time restaurant job, and I had little to no money. What I did have, I was spending on cassettes, and I had this dilemma that there was these two shows coming up. Triumph was one, and Billy Squier was the other. And Billy Squier was another huge favorite of mine, and he was rolling at the time. It was just before he had the silly video that people say ended his career. It was prior to that. So Billy Squier's coming to town. Uh, Triumph's coming to town, and if I remember right, they were like 4 days apart, and just no way. You know, I couldn't split it up between pay periods. Didn't have the money. So on and so forth. Um, I don't have the part that says how much it costs, but I think this thing cost me like $12, something like along those lines. So anyway, I was talking to somebody about, man, what do I do? And he told me, Squire's great. Squire's really good. He's hot right now. But he emphasized, Triumph is going to rock that place. And I said, that's good enough for me. So I picked Triumph. And if he just said Squire, I would have probably gone to Squire, I guess. I don't know. But it was tilted in favor of Triumph. And, I was so into this Never Surrender record. I just, I loved every track. I loved the instrumentals. And I just felt like, they were on top of their game. And, rock and hard rock and heavy metal is like relatively new to me still. It's just like this big wonderland to me. These guys are one of the main bands. I hear them on the radio all the time. They're fantastic. Everything I listen to, every record I get into, they're just great. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this show. And as it worked out, they were touring with a band called Taxi, and they had one or two minor hits. And they did play, they played a good set. They were good and fine, but it was, Triumph's the main event, and with their stage show and their catalog and their showmanship and everything, there's nothing that's going to compare to it in the way of an opening act. So, as per usual, and these are the details that I can't remember how we did it because I lived, roughly an hour away from Fresno, and had to get a ride, and on this particular one, I don't remember who went with me. Who Somebody else drove. Somebody else. Um, One of my friends went with me, and I can't figure out who the guy was. And I actually, if it's the guy I think it was, then I don't believe. I mean, I don't remember what happened to him the rest of the way. I don't remember much about that guy because I know he went to a concert with me at one time. And if it was him, I can't even remember his name. But anyway, it was pouring down rain, crazy pouring down rain uh, on this day 40 years ago. And once again, because I didn't have my own car and I wasn't calling my own shots, we get there late, and that's something that I never do, right? I mean, at the time I did. At the time I got there whenever whoever the driver was, but we pull into the parking lot for the arena, and the doors are already open, and the line is like super crazy long, and in those days, uh, the floor area was general admission, and so it was just however many people you could cram down there. So that's the thing. Myself, I would have, as we know, years later, I would have got there before the doors open, and I would have been right up front the whole time. But on these GA shows, you could get there whenever, and you could push your way to the front. So anyway, we pull into the parking lot, and as you pull in, you know when you turn in off of the main street, the arena's right there, and then you go along the arena, and then there's the part where the doors are, and you can see the line goes forever. And me and whoever it was, we jumped out of the car and we ran up to the front of the line, and we just pushed our way in, and the doors have been open who knows how long, because the line was crazy long, so I felt like they had just opened, but we don't know that, because we just got here. So we shove our way in, just like right by the door, bypassing all these people, and come, hey MF, hey, you bastards, yeah, whatever, say whatever you want. I couldn't care less. And so we got through the door, and then we went. You're in the outer concourse, and then you would go down this little flight of stairs, and then there's doors to the arena level, and we opened the doors, and there's the stage all the way at the other end, and there's hardly anybody up there. Perfect, mission accomplished. We just got to figure out where the car parked after the fact, because the car went on without us. We jumped out, and I don't know. So anyway, so we're up front there, and this show was really built up in my mind. It was really a big deal, and it was on a Friday night. Um, it couldn't have played out any better. Triumph couldn't have done anything differently than what they did. After the opening act comes off, they remove all their stuff, and then everything's the bigger set is revealed, and Triumph had things that I hadn't really. I'd never been on the floor all the way up front like that, for one thing, at this point. Okay. For another thing, and I was dead center. I was like right in the middle. I was like between Rick Emmett's on this side and Michael Vine's on that side. And of course, they're always all over everywhere. Straight in front of Gilmore. And I like the lasers that they had. I hadn't seen that quite yet. The dry ice, I remember like at some point during the show, we're right there, and they all this fog comes out and everything. And I remember like the lasers would go like right over the top of us. You'd have like this flat laser line, and the fog, you know how it looks when the fog like mingles with the the lasers and stuff like that, and that's kind of cool. But I remember one time the dry ice came out, and it's so hot in here, even though it's February. It's like super hot because everybody's all packed in like this, and everybody's moving around. And I reached up and touched it, and it was, oh, that stuff's cold, because it's dry ice. And just every last little thing. It was the first concert where I was like really engaged, like up close. The other ones I had been back a bit. I was kind of up close for a Joan Jett show in a small theater prior to this, but different deal than an arena level show with this kind of, you know, Joan Jett was like a straight up rock and roll slash, you know, punkish kind of show, and the audience was providing, you know, tons of energy. This thing was this huge production, and heretofore, like with my Van Halen shows, I've been back a bit, and Ozzy Osbourne, and you know, you get the wide view of the whole thing. Well, here, you know, I'm up front, and unless you turn around, you don't really have a sense of who's behind you and how many people are actually back there. And when you do, it's like, you know, wow, this is crazy. But you're up there, and it just seems like every little thing. The way I like to, you know, follow along. I want to see how does he play this, and you know, the interplay between them and all that. And it was really really terrific. Um, I remember when they first came out, the very first song, it was just like an assault. You know, it was lights, it was loud. You know, ladies and gentlemen, you know, welcome Triumph, and here they come, and uh, they just hit like full speed, just hit the ground running. They come out, and you know, everything is engaged. You know, I don't really know how to explain this, and I know I'm probably like repeating myself. You know what a Van Halen show looks like. You know the production of an Ozzy Osbourne show. Well, now I got these guys, and it's a whole different vibe, and they're really letting it rip. And they played so many good songs. Set list, you know, set list lists 5 songs, and it's Never Surrender, Magic Power, Fight the Good Fight, Blinding Light Show, and A World of Fantasy. I believe they started with Too Much Thinking. I think that's what they came out with. And then, like, I remember When the Lights Go Down. I remember he had the slide guitar and started with that. I would say that the ones like, you know, Magic Power, I mean, that's just the whole crowd is into that emotionally, you know. I mean, that it's just like an uplifting thing. And you know, that's Triumph's niche in this hard rock world, you know, in this hard rock progressive, you know, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is that they do, and whatever was popular at the time. um, they play a song like that, and you know, it just flowed. You know, the whole audience was into it. It was a big, you know, like a festival type of feeling. The Blinding Light Show. I mean, I at this point I did not have that record that's on the first one, and wow, you know, you talk about all the lights that they have, and just blasting the audience with them, and you know, that's like an epic type of song. Uh, Rick Emmett just you know, he sells this thing. He tells this story, you know, and then they keep coming back with the Blinding Light Show, and you just, you know, you feel like you're gonna get a sunburn off of it. It was just fantastic, you know, everything about this show. I'm telling you, it was just amazing. And I got a couple things back here. This thing, they handed these out on the night of, and this is mine. You can probably tell. I've had this for 40 years, you know, wherever I store all my stuff, and it's probably in pieces now since I dropped it, but it opens up, you know, and what it's really opens up to is this poster, which, as you can see, is not completely intact. And you got Rick wearing his Converse All-Stars, and Mike's wearing his Hawaii shirt, and Gil's drinking a cold one, and then it's got, you know, stuff like this on the band. And there's the catalog: Rock and Roll Machine, Just a Game, Progressions of Power, Allied Forces, and Never Surrender. And you know, they probably made one more, in my opinion. They made one more after this, Thunder 7, that was just absolutely fantastic. Like this progression that they've done, that has culminated at this point into this. Thunder 7, in my mind, was along in that same vein. And after that, you know, they finally put out records that you know, I didn't really care for everything on it. This other thing I bought online one night, and you know, I found it on eBay, and I don't know, you know, I don't do stuff like this too often. Like, I've got so much memorabilia, I don't often search out memorabilia from somebody else, but this was like really reasonably priced, and this looks like the same thing. It looks like well, no, I take that back. It's not the same thing. This is whatever it is. You know, I'm not exactly sure why that was. This, I think, is the official tour program. If you you know, paid the $8 or whatever it was at the time. And this thing, interestingly enough, it came. The guy's ticket is here. He's got it clipped in here, and this is at the Dayton Hera Arena and Exhibit Center in Dayton, Ohio. and this was May 21st, so this would be uh, like 3 months after my show. And then you go through here, and it's got all this information and stuff, and cool pictures and everything. And the cool thing, well, I don't know if it's a cool thing, but I think it's kind of funny. But anyway, a little bio on each guy, and then a little sense of what their show is kind of like with all the lights and everything. And then you got this same picture, which I believe is on the back of this Converse All-Star thing. But then this page right here, as you can see, it was a merch order form, and he bought something. So the guy cut it out and sent it off and purchased something from the store. So that's cool. Now, also noteworthy here is this was my show was in February, and then that one, which I had nothing to do with, was whatever I said, it was in May. They went on in May of that year, like right after that show, they went on to do the US Festival, and I bought this VHS, actually, when did I buy this? I bought this in San Diego, probably in the late 80s. I remember I was in a video store looking for, oh man, you can buy Alice Cooper videos and stuff like that. And I got this, and years later, when I went digital, I got the DVD of it. And so the US Festival, that was a big thing in the band's career. They had, however many 100,000 people out there, and it was a dream lineup, and they were one of the ones, and their set is very well regarded. For a long time, maybe this is just me, but for a long time, they were the only ones that you could see their set, or with my limited search skills or whatever, this was the only one that I could find, for a long time. And then on the Sport of Kings tour, they did another recording, and they released this video. It's called A Night of Triumph Live. And this is where they started with the show starts with kind of like the hologram thing that says, reach out in the darkness and hold out for your life, this thing that keeps changing shape. And it says, welcome to your night of triumph. And then they come blasting out of there. And this one here, they started Tears in the Rain. I saw them on this tour in San Diego with Black and Blue, I believe it was. And then down the road, when this thing came out, I purchased it. And then the other stuff I got here, just the artifacts, is, I've got In the Beginning, that was kind of weird how to me, their first record was Rock and Roll Machine, but then there's this. They're not quite the same. I've got Thunder 7, which I absolutely love. And then Stages. This came out, I believe, in '85 after the Thunder 7 tour, which I did not see. And then I got a couple greatest hits. There's the Classics was the first one that came out, and then years later they did the Triumph's greatest hits. And this is all, this has bonus videos of I don't know, some other stuff. But a couple cassettes still survive in the archives. But anyway, that's it. 40-year anniversary. I mean, big one on my calendar, man. I'm telling you. This band, they the whole thing where they ended up splitting up, that bothered me on a scale of like say the David Lee Roth and Van Halen thing. I was really invested in that, and I heard all of the all the back and forth, and here's what's going on, and then Hagar's coming in, and I don't know what that's going to sound like, and every bit of news that I could get on the Van Halen thing, I was in on it. When Triumph split apart, or Rick Emmett separated from Triumph, I didn't follow along, and to this day I don't really know exactly what that was all about, and I didn't get the record that they made after Rick left. I've heard some of the songs, and I like them. They're good. Of course, you got Gilmore's voice is still there, so it's good stuff. What I've heard, but I never bought the record, and I don't have it today. I did listen to some solo Rick Emmett stuff. Oh, that's what I forgot. I got Absolutely out there somewhere. I've listened to some of that, and then some of his latest stuff. I was really glad they got back together. Not so much like, oh, I got to see a tour. You guys got to go out on the road. I'm glad they did the Sweden thing and the shows that they've done. But more so, this isn't the kind of band that you want them, you know, at each other's throats or whatever. I know fans always enjoy the product that we get, and you don't want the infighting and all that. This band for me more so than most, what these guys did together, it just seemed like, man, you got this really really good thing. You got all the bases covered. Um, you work so well together. You sit here today and say, why doesn't Don Dokken and George Lynch get along? Well, not our business really, but can kind of understand that a little more than this. This to me, it just felt like they were unified and on the same page. And then when they split apart, you know, really didn't like seeing that. And it was just a shame. It just seems like it shouldn't have ever come to that. And I'm glad they got back together and they got honored and got to play live again. I'm glad for all of that. But again, this show, I'm telling you, it stands out more than any other than say the first one with Van Halen or uh, the stuff like that. Like going to uh, we went down to the site of the S Festival and saw Iron Maiden. And there's all kinds of people out on the countryside. Watching Iron Maiden. That one always sticks in my mind. But this one right there is right up there at the very top. I'd been to whatever 6, 7 concerts at this point. The afterglow that I had coming out of this one, it rivals any show. It felt just, man, they just delivered. It was perfect. And I don't think there's, when we go see our bands today that are still out there, they sound good, they look good, but there's nothing like the way these guys were, in their prime, in their heyday. And this was, I just feel so fortunate to have seen the Never Surrender tour. And, I would have loved to have seen Thunder 7. And I was glad I saw Sport of Kings. Sport of Kings was very good. But this thing right here, whatever those guys in the band are trying to, whatever they're trying to produce, whatever they're trying to give to their audience, bam, right between the eyes on this show. This was wonderful. And I'm just so glad I did. I think about it quite often, and been playing Triumph music all day today, and that's probably going to carry on for a few days, thinking about this show.